Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to discuss about when to customize PM and when to customize PR. Now, this is the common question for people who are new to OpenUI. So before going into which function to customize, we should understand which function does what action on your UI. So I have a test PM and test PR that I have created with just calling the superclasses. So what it actually does is this test renderer just calls the parent physical renderers um, classes. So I say superclass. So it calls the superclasses functions. So let me go to this view. If I reload it, first init function in presentation model will get called. An init function, you the applet properties and applet methods will be declared. All the actions that happen on the applet can be defined here. We can override the actions by calling custom functions, and we can add more properties to hold the property set of the applet. For example, in this init method, I can add a new property by calling this dot add property method, and I can add some XYZ property, and I can set the property based on some condition, and I can pass the same back to the PR to do some action. So we'll get to those details when we visit the individual functions and their actions. So once the init function is called, the setup function gets called later. So after initialization, the PM will call the setup function. The setup function has the property set as input. So it receives the applet related information as a property set. All the child arrays and all the property set arrays that you see here, everything holds the data regarding this particular applet for which the PM is uh, associated. So it's first init method that initializes all the uh, properties and functions, then setup method that sets up that gets all the input from the server. After this, the PR's init method that initializes the PR. Show UI, it creates the skeleton of the applet. If you look at this now, it has created the skeleton of the applet that you see behind. This is the applet on which the PR is rendering. It has created a skeleton here, and once show UI is done, it will go to bind events. It will bind all the events of the controls, like for, say, a drill down or any event that you see. Post bind events, it calls the bind data function that actually binds the data to this fields. Once bind data is called, all the fields will get populated. So the bind data actually does what bind data does is it gets the uh, data from the server, the actual data that is queried from the server, and it uh, adds the data to the UI, to the applet. So you see the blank field values here. All the control values will get populated in bind data function. So once it is done, you'll be able to see this. So as you see, all the functions, all the behavior of the applet is controlled in PM. all the rendering, how the data is shown in the UI, how I drill down is rendering in the UI, everything will be done by PR. PR is for the UI purposes, how UI should look. Let's say I have this list in a grid. Instead, I can have it as a carousel. So for that, I will override the look and feel by using a PR. For PM, if I click on a button on this applet, it calls a method. Before calling the method, I can override the function, the method call, and I can do some validations and everything here. I can have a property set on this particular applet on some action, and on that property, on that property, I'll bind an action in renderer so that it renders differently. For example, uh, the active accounts that you see here, once I uh, change it to inactive, maybe I can have a red background for the applet or something like that. So once I change it, I'll set a property, and based on that, I'll call the PR method, which takes care of the look and feel. So for look and feel, you customize the PR. For all the uh, behavior of the applet, we should customize the PM. So I will touch upon the individual methods that I showed here. Again, we have one method that didn't trigger. It is end life method. When I navigate out of this view, the end life method will get triggered. See, this is the end life method. If you have created any instance of some objects on the load of the applet, you can kill those instances. You can nullify the variables, or you can nullify the property sets that you set during the lifetime of the PR. So these are the methods that are getting called and that we can customize. What I'm doing is currently I'm just calling the parent superclasses functions and just leaving it as is. Before the call of the function or after the call of the function, I can have some more script to modify the behavior and the rendering of the applet. I will discuss more on this in my next video. Thank you.